Connections with BCD Travel helps customers navigate the ever-changing landscape of managed travel. Keep your program optimized by listening to this bonus material.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Program Housekeeping with one of my favorite colleagues, Amy Dalton. Amy, thanks so much for joining us again.
Oh, hey, Chad. It's so good to be here. Thanks for having me again. Love
Absolutely.
talking to you and love talking to all of our listeners.
Okay, so we have you on the podcast regularly, and these are some of my favorites because you're speaking directly to our listeners, the travel managers, the travel buyers, and giving them these quarterly program housekeeping tips.
Right.
So what have you got for me today?
Oh, my gosh. Well, what a year, right? I mean, all of us keep saying we can't believe how fast the year's gone.
Mm-hmm.
But, as we kind of going into the end of 23 and, thinking ahead to 24, there are probably, lots of things on people's list, but I think there are a top 3 or 4 that we're focused on, that I know our travelers are focused on, and our travel management community. And the 4 things that are top of mind are our duty of care and risk management. Our second being kind of our service and traveler satisfaction. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. I think the third thing is on everybody's mind is, how do we keep in line with our budgets and our spend? And then lastly, I'm just going to touch on briefly, access to content, AKA NDC. I'm sure people have different lists or maybe, some different things. But these, when we look at our surveys that we've recently done, these seem to be the top areas that our customers are focused on.
Well, that's a lot to bite off, but I know if anyone's capable of doing it, you are. So let's jump right into it. Number 1, duty of care. What do you got for me?
Oh my gosh. It's interesting. I think duty of care, when we did our last survey, our BCD survey to our travel management community, was interesting. The top 2 priorities, when we said, if you had to look at your travel program and list your top priorities, what are they? And the 2 that came out on top, and never surprising, is 1, duty of care, and 2, traveler satisfaction. So if I go back to duty of care, I would tell you that continues to be, in everybody's top category, with, again, the geopolitical situation with some of the war that's happening, internationals getting a lot of, exposure in terms of making sure people are traveling safe. So I think duty of care will always and continue to be an area of focus, right, for our community. And it's interesting. The other stat that I thought was really good was in the survey. It said that up to 64% of travelers, not travel managers, but travelers are concerned about their duty of care in terms of, traveling internationally, or just making sure they're staying at hotels that are approved and have the proper security, whatever it may be. So it's interesting that when we look at that survey, the travelers themselves are feeling like they want to make sure they have the right duty of care when they're traveling for their corporation. So Chad, I think the biggest thing, knowing duty of care is so important, is, again, how do you navigate that? And, I always say it's kind of the simple things, but we always say ensure that you have a really robust duty of care, security, and risk program as part of your travel policy. Make sure you're partnering with, human resources, your risk team, third-party suppliers, and your TMC like BCD Travel. Make sure we're all in the sandbox together to make sure that we've got your duty of care covered end to end. BCD provides all kinds of different security assessments and solutions. And so, again, it's making sure all those suppliers and all those people, that stakeholders that have a say in the program, that you're synced up and that your program has a very robust end-to-end solution. Everything from, door to en route to, getting people where they need to get.
So much to think about. Great way to kick off your program housekeeping for this quarter. What's next?
So next on the list, the second biggest topic, as I said in the survey, that is important to our travel management community is traveler satisfaction and service. I think, as I talked about earlier, the supply and demand, the demand has been greater than the supply, right?
It's been a rough year for sure.
Yeah. And so everybody's seeing full planes and, full cars and all the different things, full hotels. And important that, and what's happening as a result is, whether it's the geopolitical or it's, the demand issues, there are disruptions, right? There are several disruptions that are happening in the space, whether, people can't get where they need to get, there's cancellations, etc. And so that just creates some sort of chaos and stress for our traveler community. And so I think traveler satisfaction and service is becoming super important post-pandemic. And really, I think one of the things that we really encourage everybody to look at is, one, make sure your traveler community, back to our duty of care, make sure your traveler community understands the landscape, right? What's happening with supply and demand, what's happening with your suppliers, if you need to take extra precautions in booking certain things, how do you do that? I think those are all things that are really important to make sure travelers understand the landscape, right? I think the second thing is travelers want to be empowered. And so I think it's important that you push as much self-service tools, digital tools, online, everything that you can to your traveler community, because at the end of the day, they want to be empowered, both in the booking and in the disruption. A lot of travelers don't want to sit on the phone. They don't want to make a phone call. They want to do everything on their app or through their digital device or, whatever, through the airline app. So really important to educate and push all of those self-service tools to your traveler community as much as possible with education so that they feel empowered, right? So that when there are service disruptions or issues, they're able to feel like they can address those in a self-service way as well.
Okay, so we know that duty of care, service, super important. What's number 3?
Number 3, and keep in mind, Chad, these, I put these in these order. It doesn't, like I said, maybe you may have spin at the top of your list, but the third one that I think everybody's keeping their eye on the ball is managing to your budget, having your travelers comply to the spend, buckets that you've tried to create for 2023 and ending 2024. It's interesting, 23 is almost over. As it relates to fiscal 20, a lot of customers' budgets are done, and some customers are on different fiscal cycles. But I think important, everybody's seeing an increase in their total T&E. They're seeing an increase in their travel spend. All their, costs are going up as it relates to inflation, labor, that kind of supply and demand we talked about. And so I think, as we go into next year, it's really important to make sure that we all understand what the budget is, for the various organizations. What kind of compliance metrics do you have? I think data is the biggest thing that you can use to manage what the behavior of your travelers are. In terms of, are they buying things that you want them to buy? Are they buying the right things in their travel experience? Are they buying, and are they meeting the budget of those things that they're buying? So I think really important that they use data, analytics, dashboards. We can do all kinds of things as it relates to analytics and data points, at the traveler level, at the business level, and at the company level, right? Or by market, even if it's a global customer. So I think important to make sure that we know what metrics and triggers we need to be watching for as it relates. Is it cost per mile? Is it average ticket price? Is it your total cost of your travel program? Is it your, hotel spend as a whole? What are those things that we need to make sure we're synced with you on, that you have a budget line that we need to make sure that we're helping you with? And so I think once you establish what the budget is, you get the metrics, you figure out how you're going to measure it. The second thing is making sure that you source appropriately, right? So making sure that you, source all your suppliers with the right frame of mind of what kind of budget and what kind of traveler behavior you want. We're starting to see a lot of folks, source kind of smaller and not so many hotel properties or not so many airline partners. And I think important to understand how do you source smart to make sure that you're getting the best discounts for your program and that you're not spreading yourself too thin across too many suppliers. Because again, that will dilute your savings, if you will. And then I think the last thing is back to what we said all along, which is communicate to your travelers. So if travelers understand that you need them to travel in a certain way, you need to have them stay in a certain category of hotel, you need them to stay in certain hotels, you need them to not book business class in certain markets, whatever that might be, important that we use that traveler engagement and that whole messaging and kind of communication throughout the journey to make sure the travelers are making the right decisions as it relates to spending money.
I love the fact that you brought up, smart sourcing and partnering with the right people and the right ways for your program, there have been some really eye-opening findings this year. Specifically, hotels come right to mind for me on, reducing your program doesn't make things more difficult. In fact, it makes it more cost effective.
Absolutely.
More often than not, and a conversation for travel managers to have with their program manager to see if that works for them.
Yeah. We're starting to do some different sourcing in Avito, lots of different ways, more strategic, smaller, so that, again, you can take that spend that is so important to you and leverage it differently and more, so that those discounts are greater.
All right. Hit me with your fourth point.
Oh, my gosh. My fourth one is that the topic of new distribution or content access. I say content access, but really everybody's talking about the new distribution channels. And it's been the hot topic all year pretty much, right? Since last March, I think it really picked up momentum, particularly in the U.S. It's been a hot topic all over the globe. But what's really interesting is just, I'm not going to dig into all the details of NDC because it's still evolving, right? I think NDC is here. We're starting to see it across the globe more. It's been in Europe quite a bit already for several years in terms of that content. Now we're starting to see it in Canada and, in LATAM and now in the U.S., right, markets. And so with the new distribution channel, I think it's my viewpoint of this is it's evolving. It's a new way of content and bundling that's going to be coming our way. We're already starting to see it. And so the biggest thing is it fully baked yet? Not yet. It's still in development. Some things are further developed than others as it relates to having access to that content. I think the biggest thing I would say as you kind of look into 24 is stay informed, right? Because things are changing, right? We've got online booking tools that are making accommodations, GDSs. All of us in the space and the ecosystem are trying to get our solutions and technology ready so that we can fully sell and report and service all of this content. So I think it will continue to evolve. And, I think staying informed is super important. We've been doing lots of connections, BCD connections with our clients, which has been great if people can attend some of those. And just in our kind of housekeeping with our clients directly, making sure they're up to speed on all things NDC. So I think it's evolving, but I think it's important we encourage everybody to stay informed. I think the other thing that I would say about NDC is understand it's an ecosystem kind of strategy. Not one supplier can make that really work successfully by themselves. And when I say that, the whole ecosystem's got to move into the space, which we're seeing now, which is great. But that means we've all got to play in the sandbox. So that's airline, hotels, car, all the suppliers, TMCs, GDSs, online booking tools. I call it a friendly sandbox approach where we all sit in the sandbox and make sure that the evolution of this new fairing is, like I said, going to be able to be serviced and a great solution for everybody in the sandbox. So, I keep encouraging people to create that sandbox approach and remember it is an ecosystem that's moving in that direction. And we're excited about it, but our job is to keep everybody informed.
Yeah, you always mention, the importance of communication.
Yeah.
Usually you're talking travel manager to traveler, but in this case, that communication is just as important between travel manager, travel buyer, and your program manager
and
to
suppliers.
help steer. And suppliers to help steer through this whole thing. Yeah.
It's like I said, it was a hot topic, and now I think everybody's accepting it. The ecosystem is embracing it, but it's still in development, and we've all got to keep paddling and moving together to get it to the finish line.
I had my doubts in the beginning when you gave me such a robust list, but a lot of things to think about, some great tips along the way. It's hard to believe 2023 is almost over. We're just about to hit 2024. I know you're always one of my favorite people to talk to, but everyone benefits from a little moment with Amy Dalton.
Oh, that's nice.
Amy, thanks so much. Always a pleasure. And to all of you listening, thank you as well.
Thanks for listening to this Connections bonus material. Learn more about the information you heard today and what BCD Travel can do for you by visiting bcdtravel.com/podcast.